Welcome, wrestling fans. Welcome to Curtain Jerkin. As always, I'm your host, Jacob Grondy, reporting for the Main Event Marks YouTube channel. You can also check me out on Spotify. However you're listening to me, I appreciate it. And we're just going to be jumping right into it, guys. We got a lot to talk about. I wrote down a few subjects I wanted to talk about before we go into more of the review side of wrestling. We're going to talk about AEW ranking every match from Dynamite and Collision from worst to first, talking about the All-In build. We're going to be talking about Monday Night Raw. We're going to be talking about Edge. We're going to be talking about Logan Paul, Sean O'Malley, Lacey Evans, Cash Wheeler. We're going to talk about it all, but guys, like I said before, my hand is broken. It makes it very hard to type. I usually type out a lot of notes, and I haven't typed out as many notes before, so I'm going to try to keep it more opinion-based. I went to the doctor about my hand and kind of said, hey, man, you said only one hand was broke, but they both fucking hurt. What should I do? And he said, in 3 weeks, I'll send you to the hand expert. And I'm like, bro, who the fuck are you? Why am I seeing you if you're not a hand expert and I broke my hand and they told me to come to you? What's even going on? But I mean, the left hand, which isn't supposedly broke, that's just severely bruised and scarred, I can get full rotation now. I've been focusing all on running. I got this big race in Kentucky. But so it's frustrating. It's frustrating to be hurt. It's frustrating to be injured, but it's fun to talk about wrestling. Wrestling and the broader sports entertainment world has been crazy since we last spoke, and nothing has been crazier than Cash Wheeler, dude. Top Guy's out on bail. You gotta love it. Packing heat Wheeler. Packing and cashing. I mean, the nicknames just write themselves here. Florida man in Orlando, road raging, pulls a gun out, assaults someone with a gun. Didn't shoot him. I guess he assaulted him with the gun, maybe hit him with a gun. He said he didn't know the people involved, which is crazy. I don't know, man. I'll just say it right now, man. I don't care if this makes me a wuss or not, but if there's an altercation between me and you pull out a gun, no need to assault me. I'm stepping away from you. This shit got more serious than I thought. This shit got more serious and more real than I wanted to get to. You won. You had the gun. So the fact that he pulled out the gun and still assaulted the guy, I wonder, what happened. I want to know more. So hopefully this Florida court spills the beans. AEW is not punishing this guy, and I'm glad. I mean, maybe you should. I don't know. But I want to see this match between the Young Bucks and FTR so bad that I'm so glad they're not punishing this guy. Let's move on to Lacey Evans. Lacey Evans, I think it was 2016, 2017, they did the Mae Young Classic. They had all these women out there wrestling. I think that was Toni Storm's first time in WWE, if I'm not mistaken, and then she went on to NXT UK. Maybe I'm mixing things up here, but there's lots of women involved, including Lacey Evans, whose military background had the gimmick. Not a lot of ladies had this gimmick, and she had a legitimate gimmick of being a hot military woman. And, I thought, she was a good enough wrestler. She looked good. I thought she was going to be a star in WWE, but they never really found out what to do with her. I mean, even this past year, they changed gimmicks. They re-debuted her 5 or 6 times. They just couldn't nail it, which it's so obvious, just do the whole 60s pinup thing. Maybe, those women that are spray painted on all those jets in the World War II movies. She could just be a living embodiment of that with the legitimate tie into her military. But what did they do? They made her love Ric Flair to get at Charlotte Flair, even though Ric Flair is 70 years old and married. It was weird. She released some scantily clad photos recently, so maybe she got kicked, fired for something like that, just like Mandy Rose. I can see her just like Mandy Rose making more money outside of WWE with, some scantily clad photos and everything like that, doing conventions, maybe doing, conservative podcasting and things like that. I can see her making a lot of money in that realm outside of wrestling, just like Mandy Rose is doing, and just like I bet, maybe not, exactly like them, but Ronda Rousey as well. Like you can use WWE as a platform or even a springboard to launch you into other things if you do it correctly. And I think maybe Lacey Evans can do it correctly. I think I'm more interested in seeing what Lacey Evans does outside of WWE than I was ever seeing her doing something inside of WWE. Moving on to Sean O'Malley. I think this guy is someone to watch. If you don't know where to start with MMA right now, I would start with Sean O'Malley. I would just start following him, watching him, tuning into his fights. He is like a skinny, dude. He looks kind of like a SoundCloud rapper. He's got the face tats, the pink hair, but he knocks people out. I remember at this brewery, I run this beer drive-through, believe it or not, at a brewery I work at, and there was a guy who would always invite me over to watch UFC fights. I never ended up going, but I definitely trusted his opinion on MMA because he watched every single fight. And even before Sean O'Malley, I think he might have fought one time or something like that. And he told me, he's like, this guy is money. And now he's 17-1 and no contest. So if you put $100 down on him every time he fought, what would you have? You'd have like a $1,500 or something like that in the course of like 2 or 3 years. So I mean, that's not, make your money how you make your money, but I'm saying this is the guy to watch. He's crazy. He's got this odd look to him. He's got this odd personality for a fighter, but when he gets in the ring, he's all show, all go. He's ready, and I love him. I think he can captivate an audience. And fill in that void that, I think Conor McGregor and guys like that are leaving behind in the sport. So I just wanted to maybe share my opinion on that. A novice in watching UFC, but I do think Sean O'Malley is the star. And I was told a while ago to watch him, and now I'm watching him, and it's coming to fruition. He's laying people out. I was excited to see that. Now going on to Logan Paul. And what's his name? Danny Danis or something like that. Hold on, let me look. What's this dude's name here? Devin Donis. Anyways, he's like a former UFC guy, former Bellator guy, Dylan Danis. And he's pretty much like known for no-showing fights and kind of being an asshole. And he got in this fight with Logan Paul. Logan Paul is a big celebrity boxer. Boxed Floyd Mayweather in Miami and sold out Miami boxing fight. He's fought some other people, but he gets laid out. He gets knocked out. He's definitely a WWE superstar and not a boxer. But here he is boxing Dylan Danis, who's kind of maybe done a bunch of stuff to get himself excommunicated from the MMA circles or something like that. There's some reason he's not in Bellator anymore. There's some reason he's not in UFC anymore. And here he is fighting Logan Paul. And if you haven't heard, as soon as they talked about the fight, he just started posting pictures of Logan Paul's fiance, legitimate fiance, with other dudes like IndyCar drivers, Leonardo DiCaprio, everyone you can think of, Ja Rule, LeBron James, Bill Nye the Science Guy, tons of old dudes who look like they have a lot of money. It's kind of weird, but more or less hinting at his wife being promiscuous to the point of sloppy behavior, and to put it mildly. And Logan Paul, of course, didn't like this. Apparently, sent him with a cease and desist. But then it's all coming ahead to this morning, this afternoon. I watched it. They had a press conference where they showed up. Logan Paul was all talk here. Had a picture of Dylan Danis getting choked out by a security guard. Had a cake with Dylan Dennis getting knocked out, including a camel toe. A camel toe on Dylan Dennis, knocked out. And this is all the undercard. This is the Steamboat Savage of this WrestleMania 3, because KSI, another YouTuber, he was famous for playing FIFA, and I think he knocked Logan Paul out before. He's like a little bit better than Logan Paul, not as good as Jake Paul, from what I understand, in the world of celebrity YouTube boxing. But he's fighting Tyson Fury's brother, who laid out Jake Paul earlier this year. And this is just interesting. I mean, they even said it in the press conference. The promoters called this sports entertainment. And, I mean, to even sink in deeper into the wrestling sphere, KSI was talking about how he's different. He's the one. He said that he's the one guy that can see John Cena, which was like a bizarre claim. It doesn't honestly make any sense, but the crowd oohed, the crowd awed, and you know why they oohed and awed? Because they all know who John Cena is, because this is so pro wrestling. It's better than the build for AEW All In. It's in London as well. It's not until October 14th, so we're weeks away, months away, but we're still all excited about this. Maybe AEW could watch this build. Maybe actual pro wrestling companies could watch this build and see how not to rush things, how not to, how to lay down things properly. I mean, don't get anyone's real life wife involved or anything like this, but this is some pro wrestling shit here, complete with Tyson Fury's dad getting pissed that they're not talking about wrestling or fighting anymore. They're all talking about, their wives and girlfriends and things like that. That he flips 2 tables. The whole deal ends in a skirmish. This was ridiculous here, guys. But I'm just saying, if you watch and you keep up with WWE or any kind of pro wrestling, I bet you would be entertained. Maybe, a little turned off by the exact nature of the heat they're getting, especially Dylan Dennis. But I do think that you would be intrigued and would be pulled in. I mean, they're even calling this sports entertainment. People are talking about, is it a real fight? Is it a fake fight? I think wrestling was big in the 80s. Wrestling then got more popular because of the Attitude Era in the 90s. But in the 2000s, wrestling dipped. In the 2010s, it definitely was UFC that kind of brought in that big fight feel. It made you feel like you were watching something, a cultural event, through the sports entertainment realm. And I think in the 2020s, the new 20s, this celebrity YouTube boxing thing might be what's kind of taken that place in the social sphere. But with that being said, let's go into what we're all here to talk about today, WWE and AEW. WWE, my overall thoughts, Edge, we got to talk about second retirement, but this one was big. I feel like, probably the best wrestling moment of 2020 was him coming back at the Royal Rumble. He's been consistent, like a constant thing since 1998. I remember the match that he had teaming with Sable at SummerSlam 98, revered as one of the best pay-per-views of all time. That was like his first big match, and then you watch him go all the way to the ladder matches with him and Christian, and then teaming with Randy Orton, and then kind of breaking away, doing the rated RKO stuff with John Cena, not the rated RKO, excuse me, but doing the rated R superstar stuff with John Cena, and then going over to SmackDown. SmackDown was kind of like his show for a while with him and Vicky, and unfortunately had to retire WrestleMania 27. This is all off the cuff here, man. This is how legitimate he was. But here he is, perceived last match on SmackDown. Hits the execution to Sheamus. What a great finisher named Spear. He wins the perceived last match in his hometown. You gotta love that shit. No bloodline this week on SmackDown, kind of giving us a break after the story arc kind of didn't go as well as they were thinking. This whole thing was so good and critically and well received, as well as fans loved it as well. But then when Jimmy turned on Jay, people kind of got shook a little bit. So cooling it down to bring it back up again is probably the right move. And Jimmy Uso will be live next week. And they're hyping that up. They're hyping up a week build to having Jimmy Uso. 2-3 years ago, if you would have told me this, I would have thought this whole thing was bullshit. But it's pretty wild to watch. It's pretty fun to watch. And then they kind of have Miz and LA Knight on both shows. Miz is the perfect guy for LA Knight. Both guys can talk people into seats. Both guys are more Memphis than AEW, so to speak. They do a lot of selling. They paint with broad strokes, if you will. And I do love how they're bringing in guys like Theory and Tozawa, getting them involved as well. You have a whole roster. Why not use it to help get these guys over, get the guy over that you want to? And I think if you told me Tozawa, Theory, and The Miz are all going to be a part of a feud that's going to help get LA Knight over, I would say sign me up, because all of them got talent, and I'm just excited to see it. I love Tozawa wrestling The Miz on Monday Night Raw. Huge senton off the top. But Miz gets his knees up. That looked fucking nasty. But then Miz ends up getting rolled up. Tozawa winning. That wasn't the only upset of the night. Gable and Gunther. Gable beat Gunther by count out. But Jesus Christ, you gotta love Chad Gable getting that pop. Speaking of pop, Sami Zayn came out in Quebec, kicking off Monday Night Raw. Sami Zayn was the most over guy, I think, on Monday Night Raw, but Raw is definitely Judgment Day's show. Much like the Bloodline on SmackDown, the Judgment Day is just all over Raw. Sami speaks in French, got an LA Knight-style pop. Kevin Owens comes out to even the odds. Finn licking his wounds after getting laid out by those two, talking to JD McDonough in the back. Rhea wants to talk to Finn, though, and doesn't want JD to come. Cody gets a pop, bringing the interviewer out on the ramp, kind of a Monday Night Nitro style. I love that shit. Rhea wrestling Candice LeRae. Don't get me wrong, I love Candice LeRae, but this feels like a placeholder that's kind of bringing Rhea down a little bit. I would just not have Rhea involved in the women's division at all at this point. Maybe have her wrestle Candice LeRae at house shows and things to get her reps in, but I just like this ominous world title holding presence that is Mommy. But then the main event, Judgment Day versus Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn, super over main event here. Fucking Sami Zayn killing it. KO clocks Balor with the briefcase that was thrown to him by JD McDonough. So they end up losing the match, but Cody runs in because Judgment Day looks like they're going to jump the tag team champions, and we got a 6-man tag. It wouldn't be Raw without an impromptu 6-man tag match. Judgment Day take the L, but Judgment Day kind of feels bigger than the main title on Raw right now. They feel like the biggest, best, and most shown aspect of Raw, and I think it's good because you got a faction like this, 4 members and kind of a 5th member with JD McDonough, and then you got a few guys feuding off of that. I mean, you got Candice LeRae, you got Raquel Rodriguez with a big pop. Speaking of that, if you were to take Candice LeRae and Rhea match off the show, and you would have had Raquel come back at the beginning of Raw and one-upping Rhea in the part where Sami and Kevin Owens get the better of Judgment Day anyways, and then you have Raquel, Sami, and KO standing tall. I think that Sami and KO could have given Raquel a little bit of a rub, and then you could have kept that presence with Rhea instead of having Rhea beat Candice LeRae for the millionth time for no reason. That's just a little nitpick in there, though, and I think that what Judgment Day does well is they give WWE a mid-card, and WWE famously doesn't do well with the mid-card, but now with LA Knight and Chad Gable and Judgment Day, I mean, shit, the mid-card might be the best part and of the two shows. I mean, I love this shit. I'm kissing WWE's ass here, but I like it here. I like Nakamura whispering in Rollins' ear and then cutting the promo in Japanese, talking about how he knows about his back, playing into the weaknesses of the champion. Very sports entertainment. I love it. Now we're going over to AEW. The storylines for All In are all laid out. The story for All In is the spectacle. The build for TV week to week has really kind of been non-existent. But if you go online, the story is the fans being so hyped, selling out more tickets than any wrestling show has ever sold. Sorry, WrestleMania 32, your official or unofficial number of 102 is bullshit. I think they sold like 87,000 tickets. First time going to the UK. If you ask Tony Khan, they're bigger in the UK than WWE. I don't know if that's true or not. But what I'm saying here is the build has all been on social media. The build has all been in news outlets. There's not been too much build week to week. Other than like maybe MJF and Adam Cole until this week. It's been good, but it's felt rushed. I think it took away from a lot of the focus in ring this week. There's only like, I think 4 matches, or where there's usually 5 or something like that. It didn't feel like we had a lot of blowaway matches this week. JR sit down with Omega. Omega ends up getting attacked by Bullet Club Gold and Takeshita. There's a lot of history here with Switchblade. There's a lot of history here with Takeshita that they could have played into, where I would have wanted to see a singles match rather than this 6-man tag, but we're getting this 6-man tag. Switchblade took the helm of Bullet Club over from Omega when Omega left New Japan to form AEW. Since then, Switchblade has been holding Bullet Club strong, been killing it in main events with, Okada, Naito, really anyone you can think of, Tanahashi in New Japan, selling out the Tokyo Dome, becoming a bigger star than I ever thought he could. Then he leaves New Japan, signs with AEW, had kind of a rough start until Collision started, I feel like. And they could have played into all of that with a big singles match here, but they didn't. They're having a 6-man tag. It feels like they want to get everyone on the show to the detriment of the matches here. Hangman cutting a promo in the ambulance, that was well done. But like I said, I would rather have a Omega Takahashi match, Omega Jay White match. I mean, shit, Omega versus Ospreay. I mean, the rumor is that New Japan won't let them get that match, that match is going to happen at Wrestle Kingdom. But, I mean, shit, man. When you could have these big Omega singles matches in a stadium setting in the UK for the first time, but we get just a 6-man tag. I mean, maybe Omega ain't the Omega he once was. Maybe injuries are catching up to him. That's why they're kind of doing this 6-man tag thing. But I just feel like they're missing a big opportunity here. And if you look at the card, there's a lot of tag matches. A lot of filler, not a lot of killer. But back in the ring, we have Don Callis. He's getting booed. Jericho comes out, and he joins the faction. And this was great here. I don't think Don Callis thought he was going to join the faction. Revealed this crazy painting with Callis, like I think holding Jericho's head or something like that, right before Will Ospreay, of all people, out of nowhere, attacks Jericho. We're getting Jericho versus Ospreay, a dream match that we never dreamt of. This is definitely a generational match here. Apparently, Fozzy is going to play in Wembley, so you're going to get that big spectacle of an entrance from Jericho. And who's kidding who here? Jericho is laying down for Ospreay. The best in the world is going to beat Jericho in his home country in Wembley. I would have wanted to see Ospreay versus Kenny, but if you can't do that because there's already a deal with Ospreay and Kenny doing that at Wrestle Kingdom, Jericho versus Ospreay is good. Kind of rushed. They could have kind of hinted that Callis and Ospreay were talking or anything like that. It just seems kind of out of the blue. But what can you do? I'll take it. MJF versus Adam Cole. I thought this was pretty interesting. So, after the brawl out last year with CM Punk and the Elite, everyone, all of them fighting, I always thought that, when then they split the two shows up, I was like, well, these guys are going to have a hard time getting heat because it's implied that they're all friends with each other, and we know that they're not really trying to fight each other. We know that they're just friends. But boy, was I wrong, because the biggest show ever, the build is that the two guys fighting are friends. None of them have turned on each other. We do have a more traditional build going into 0 Hour with Aussie Open jumping MJF and Adam Cole. But I mean, you got the best tag division probably ever assembled in AEW, and the most over team are these two heels that fake like each other, maybe possibly like each other. I don't know really where they're going with it, but it's just pretty interesting. And never in a million years would I have thought the biggest wrestling show ever would have been built like this. But you know what? They already sold the tickets. Bully Ray says they shouldn't have announced any matches. They should have just had them all surprises, which would have been crazy. You would have gotten these huge pops for anyone who would have come out, which would be pretty fun to think about. But you know what? At the end of the day, who's not watching this card? It's going to be awesome. Who's not watching Collision? Collision is my favorite wrestling show week to week. You get the Christian Cage, Darby Allin, Gun Club, Dalton Castle promos right off the top. Love those promos. Love the House of Black video package. And then I was pretty intrigued by the Los Ingobernables video package. I guess they finally signed Roosh, and they finally decided to do something with 4 of these guys that have been killing it for the past year or so. Do something with them. It always feels like they never do anything with all these guys. It's like they'll have them on the show for a month, and they'll do a program, and then they go away for 2 months, and they kind of come back. I don't know. Ricky Starks aligning with Big Bill. These are other guys who kind of feel like they've done a lot with them, but no detriment to the performers, no detriment to the wrestlers. Nothing has stuck. Darby and Sting showing up at AR Fox's training school. How sick would that be? You go to a little indie show with 50 people, and then you see Sting. Holy shit, that would be crazy. That would literally blow my mind. I would not know what to think. And then it's kind of cool because AR Fox and Swerve Strickland showed up at Nick Wayne's school in the West Coast. So then Sting and Darby show up at AR Fox's school in Atlanta. I mean, super great stuff here. I think that build might have been, here I am shitting on the build, but that build was been great so far. But let's rank all these matches from worst to first. A lot, like I said, there's a lot of filler, no killer here with these matches, man. AEW usually delivers great matches. Don't get me wrong, a lot of these matches are good, but I'll just get into it. Joe versus the Golden Vampire. And you got to rank this match worse because there's only one move done in this whole match, and it was kind of sloppy. It was a GTS, the Golden Vampire being revealed that he's CM Punk. You got to like it as far as storyline, but as far as match quality, you got to rank it down low, which is crazy because, I'm super stoked for Joe versus Punk, but, you got to call a spade a bad match when a spade is a bad match. Number 12, the Texas Chainsaw match. This was fucking ridiculous. I get it. They did it to give the money to kids somehow through a video game. But they brawled throughout the arena. Whatever. But then Leatherface comes out. This is funny to me because this isn't the first time Leatherface has shown up in a wrestling setting. They did this before in FMW in the 90s, which was a Japanese promotion where they had Leatherface come out, and it got so over that a guy ended up being on the roster called Leatherface. He wrestled as Leatherface, dressed up as Leatherface. So I guess a little bit of history with FMW and the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and the fact that somehow this is going back to a charity, ranked it above the Joe getting GTS'd. We also had the Acclaim getting attacked by House of Black. I don't know if this is technically a match, but we're calling it a match. It's ranked at number 11. Big Bill beat Derek Knock. I did a little research on this man as he was getting his ass beat. 19-year-old veteran of the game, wrestles for New South Pro Wrestling, mostly, which is a promotion that what I've seen I have liked. They're wrestled mainly in Alabama, but chokeslam 1, 2, 3, and Big Bill stands tall as he always does. Powerhouse versus Kevin Koo. Kevin Koo wrestles predominantly in a tag team in the Indies. Wrestles for GCW. Wrestles for Deadlock Pro Wrestling. He always ends up in the hip Indies, and the crowd showed it. The crowd was cheering for him. The crowd knew who he was and cheered over Powerhouse Hobbs for him, but the crowd could not tag themselves in, unfortunately, because he got his ass whooped. Bunny versus Baker. We all knew Baker was going to win, but this was a nice little clever match here I enjoyed at number 8. Number 7, Nick Wayne versus Darby Allin. Nick Wayne and Darby Allin versus Gates of Agony. Gates of Agony, I like them. I think they should be shown more on AEW proper and less on Ring of Honor. They attack before the bell here. Swerve and AR Fox come out there and watch at ringside. Moonsault from Nick Wayne. Coffin drop from Darby. 1, 2, 3. They get the win. And then Sting comes out as well. Sting in the back here. Joker Sting, TNA. As I'm looking over my notes talking about this match here, Joker Sting makes a return. So Darby and Wayne get attacked in the ring, and then up on the screen, pretty much Joker Sting is torturing Prince Nana, which is, TNA days, a less-known Sting character, but Sting always has talked about how he likes this Joker Sting. He said he had the most fun sometimes in his career doing this Joker gimmick. He even brought it up in his WWE Hall of Fame run, and here it is back with Prince Nana. And I would say Sting and Prince Nana are two of the most underrated characters, I would say, in the last 20 years of pro wrestling, and there they are on the screen together. It was kind of a cool moment. Makes me want to rank this match a little higher. Makes me almost want to rank it above, almost, Willow and Diamante. These two ladies killed it. I love the women's division on Collision. It's like all the scraps that maybe didn't fit onto Dynamite for whatever reason, making their way, finding a home on Collision, and killing it. Chris Statlander gets involved. Mercedes Martinez gets involved. And Willow beats Diamante and stands tall. Chris Statlander helps the lovable Willow Nightingale as well. Then we had the Iron Savages 2 weeks in a row versus Bullet Club Gold. Iron Savages, and the other guy was there as well. Not just Bear Country, but the jacked redhead dude, the silly-looking man. I forget his name as I'm going right back to the notes. I didn't write his name down. But the 6-man tag was great, and I liked how it went right into like the other match here that we'll talk about a little later. Darby Allin versus Christian Cage, the main event of Collision. JR comparing Darby Allin to Allen Iverson in this match. That was crazy to hear. Darby getting whooped around like a rag doll, but then ends up getting the victory at the end. Christian Cage gimmick is hilarious here. But going into the podium, we had the Guns versus the Bucks, the main event of Dynamite. Number 2, Jay White versus Dalton Castle. Cool to see Dalton Castle finally on TNT going up against another main eventer, because I always felt bad for Dalton Castle. He was getting that big push. He even beat Cody Rhodes for the ROH World title and then got that back injury. And I feel like he never really fully recovered from that back injury all those years ago. So it's cool to see him on TNT killing it. And then the first match on Dynamite, Orange Cassidy versus Wheeler Yuta. I feel like Orange Cassidy, say what you will about the gimmick. I didn't like it at first either. But when that bell rings, the way he can just hook a crowd, he knows how to build everything he does. Like The Undertaker, no wasted motion. Like Jerry the King Lawler, he gets more from doing little than most guys do doing lots, and he can still do lots. He does the DDT, he does the tornado DDTs, he does the dives, but he gets most over doing those little kicks, and then he can, land that Superman punch. I love it. I fucking love it. On paper, if you told me about this guy, I would hate it. When I first saw the guy, I hated it. But watching him for years now, I fucking love it. Another thing that they're doing wrong, I think, is not doing a singles match with him and Moxley. I think that Moxley laying down for Cassidy is what needs to happen. I think having a big WWE name, a former WWE champion, going up against Cassidy in front of Cassidy's crowd, meaning the AEW crowd, the crowd that will watch Cassidy play along, so to speak, but also get hooked, allow themselves to get hooked, suspend their disbelief at the beginning, and then before you know it, they're actually hooked, which is the funniest thing about Orange Cassidy, is you're like, oh, this is so fun, this is goofy. And then next thing you know, he's hitting the DDT, you're popping for real. He hits the orange punch, you're popping for real. And I think that would have been big for Orange Cassidy. They spent all this year trying to build Orange Cassidy up, and now he's like tied into this like multi-man tag match. Then you got Omega. He's tied into a multi-man tag match. I mean, let's just look at this card. Let's have fun. This episode's pretty fucking long anyways, but we're going to look into this card here. The AEW All In card. They're also building for All Out. So they got two big shows, like 2 weeks apart, and they're fucking up both builds, if you ask me. They're, we kind of know about a little bit of them. Of the matches on All Out, like Powerhouse has a match, Darby has a match as well, but let's look at these matches here. So yeah, you got MJF versus Adam Cole. Who's screwing over who? We don't know. I don't know. This is gonna make me pay. I'm not trying to pay to look at the match card. So yeah, 9 big matches. So MJF versus Adam Cole, but I think the real story arc here is going to happen in the first match, Aussie Open versus MJF and Adam Cole. I think the Kingdom and I think Roderick Strong are going to screw over MJF, and I think they're going to form a new faction with the Kingdom, Adam Cole, Roderick Strong, and they're going to make MJF babyface, and then that's going to go into the main event of MJF down but not out, the devil we all love, and he's going to beat Adam Cole, and he's going to continue his championship reign as a face. That's kind of what I'm seeing. I don't know if that might be for the best, but that's how I'm going to see it. I think Adam Cole swerved Jericho a lot in his feud with Jericho, and he kind of has this knack for swerving the heel, and he's like the cool face because he swerves the heel, but now he's going to swerve the heel and become the mega heel and make the biggest heel face because he's already getting face reactions in MJF. That's how I'm calling it. FTR versus the Young Bucks. I mean, you got to put the title on the Young Bucks in Wembley, especially if Cash Wheeler might go to fucking jail or some shit like that. Hopefully he doesn't. I love Cash. Packing heat Cash. Glock Wheeler, whatever you want to call him. Hikaru Shida, Toni Storm, Saraya versus Britt Baker. I think you want to put the title back on Toni Storm because the crowd really hasn't taken to Saraya the way you want the crowd to take to Saraya. She seems kind of bland in AEW. She was over in the Diva era for standing out because she was like this hot goth girl, but now there's tons of hot goth girls running around the wrestling scene, and because of her injury she can't really go like she used to, so I would put it on Toni Storm. Toni Storm, isn't she British? I think so. Get the title on the home country girl here. Darby Allin and Sting versus the Mogul Embassy. Fun build here. I think you got to put give the win to the faction here, the Mogul Embassy. I mean, Sting, the moment is going to be him coming out at Wembley, giving that ow to the biggest crowd ever. You got to love it. I mean, he's giving me goosebumps thinking about it, but the moment is going to be him coming out. And then you got the Golden Elite, Kota Ibushi, Omega, and Hangman. So Kota Ibushi has come back and only been in like multi-man tag matches on big shows in AEW, which is cool, whatever. Versus Takeshita and Juice Robinson and Jay White. So, yeah, like I said, I would rather see Kenny Omega in a big match here, but you got him in the 6-man tag. I think the Golden Elite are going to win. And then you have Eddie Kingston, Orange Cassidy, and Best Friends. Wait. Is this like what the hell is going on here? So you got Eddie Kingston, Orange Cassidy, Best Friends. I think that Wikipedia's got this all fucked up. Versus Pentagon, and a more to be announced versus Blackpool. Is this a 6-man? Who gives a shit? Blackpool Combat Club's gonna win that one. This is all fucked up. I thought it was like 3. Oh, and then 3 more to be announced. So Pentagon is teaming with 2. There's like, this is a big clusterfuck that they could all erase here and have a big fight feel with Cassidy versus Moxley. Yeah, you'd be leaving people out of the biggest show ever, but fuck it. This is the biggest show ever. Not everyone can make it on the biggest show ever. We have Ospreay versus Jericho. Much like Sting, the moment is with Jericho's entrance. And you got to, pay it forward, have the future of the business, go over with Ospreay. Then you have CM Punk versus Samoa Joe. Have CM Punk win at Wembley, have MJF win at Wembley, and then find out who the real world champion is at All Out. And I think you then put MJF over. I think, Adam Cole puts MJF over, and then at All Out you have MJF beat Punk in Chicago. That's just what I would do. I mean, you got money in MJF. Put the money behind MJF. Thanks for listening to me, guys. I know this is a huge, long show, and I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know in the comments below. Let me know on Twitter if you liked it. I'm back, baby. I'm going to be giving you more shows more frequently. Fly high. I'm out.